Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What is going on? Welcome back to another live stream with your boy AC. We recorded the podcast today. We had Max Holloway versus Arnold Allen, the recap. Then we spoke a little bit about Tank Davis versus Garcia, and we didn't get to Pavlich versus Blades, and we didn't really get to some creator clash on YouTube, but I did speak with Dunn and Corby, and a very credible journalist who works for the Irish Mirror. We spoke on Instagram Live, and we did a little creator clash recap, a little UFC recap. So that was really great, and I had a great time. Dunning is an awesome dude who always gives his time to I guess smaller guys like me or whatever the case may be. Dunning works with Jake Paul, Logan Paul. He's worked with Sam Hyde. He's worked with some of the greatest in terms of the influencer boxing space. So that was really great to go with him. Cade, what's going on, baby? What do you think's next for Max Blessed? So that was interesting as well. I had a really good time with that in terms of having Dunn and Corby on. That was really great. But man, what an awesome friggin' UFC event that was. Max Holloway, Arnold Allen, a tremendous matchup. I thought that Arnold Allen definitely gave a great matchup, even though it seemed as if at the end of the first round he put a little bit of pressure on himself. I truly believe that one of the biggest things that that Arnold Allen will take away from this is that he could hang there with the best in the division. He absolutely could. And I'm just sending out right now a YouTube an Instagram link right now for everybody to go and hit that. Let's see the dealio. Anyway, so you know what I mean? I'm just really looking for, I think, a move to 55 or Korean Zombie. I think so I definitely think that he deserves another shot at Volk, but it's not realistic for the UFC, in my opinion. No, it's not realistic because the biggest thing is that people don't want to see repeat matchups, but also keep in mind that if Volk beats Yair, if the fight happens, that he's probably going to want to move up and fight Islam. So, he is in a good spot, Max, in the sense that Volk might be moving up either way where they will miss each other. So that poses for a good thing. But for now, it's like, do we want to see him fight Chan Sung Jung, who he called out? In my opinion, I would really like to see him fight the winner in Josh Emmett and Ilia Topuria, in hoping that it's against Ilia Topuria, because he's one of those featherweights that has really shown that he has A1 boxing inside of the octagon. And you see it in his pad work. You see it in the octagon against Bryce Mitchell. This guy is an absolute stud. I think Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria down the line would be a fantastic matchup. And that's something that I would really like to see. So we'll see if the stars align there. But for now, if Max needs to stay active, why not fight a legend in Chan Sung Jung? I mean, if you think about it, even though I believe Jung is much older than Max Blessed, they basically came up in the division more or less at the same time, even though the Korean Zombie had his career taken away from him a little bit due to having to automatically join the Korean army. But to me, this is a really important thing because yes, Chan Sung Jung has a reputation, but it's kind of like, do we really want to see him get his ass kicked by Max Blessed? I mean, he's on a different level, this guy, and I really don't think that right now Chan Sung Jung will have anything to offer in terms of what Max Holloway is looking for. Yes, I agree with you there that it is the only fight that he's never had. But to be honest with you, do we really want to see him make that ass kicking? What's cool and what's right don't really align. I think the idea and the novelty of it is really cool, but I don't think it's best for Chan Sung Jung's career. But where he's sitting at in the rankings, it's kind of like you got to shit or get off the pod. So I do understand it, and I actually do think that the UFC is going to make that fight next. But I really think that if they remain a little bit patient, Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway would be a really, really great fight. And, they could wait on that so that maybe that happens for the title should one of them get there. But man, that would be really, really great. And Arnold Allen, it's like, what's next for him? It sucks because now he's got to kind of go down the pecking order against some killers. He also has Chan Sung Jung as an option. He also has Brian Ortega as an option. He also has Josh Emmett. He also has Ilia Tapora. He also has Gige Chikate. So he's got some tough options as well. And Arnold Allen doesn't necessarily know how to sell them on the mic, but he certainly knows how to get it done in the octagon, even though he came up a little short. But let's be honest here, he had a really great performance. And I think he was a little bit too hard on himself and down on himself. But ultimately, what would be best for Arnold Allen next? It's like, it's tough to say. I think that Brian Ortega would be the best option right now because he's the highest name and he would still be above him in the rankings. Right below, you're looking at the winner or loser of Josh Emmett and Ilia Tapora. And then you're looking at Chan Sung Jung. And then you're looking at Calvin Kattar too. I think the Calvin Kattar rematch would be interesting as well. I mean, we didn't necessarily get to see the whole thing unfold. I think it's a fight that Kattar would want back too. He's a competitor in itself. So maybe we get Arnold Allen versus Calvin Kattar too. Max Holloway will then get, maybe the winner of Yair Rodriguez and Volkanovski. Probably will be Yair because even if Volk wins, he'll probably move up. Or maybe he stays down and he tries to rake in a little bit more money with Max Holloway. I mean, maybe Volkanovski and Holloway can't sell out a main event, but they would definitely be a very, very strong co-main event, which I think we've seen in the past. So that would be cool also. And, another thing too for me is like, having these losses or a guy like into a title fight, yeah, for sure. I mean, having these losses like for a guy like Arnold Allen shouldn't really be that big of a deal. I know it's tough to say that, easier said than done, but it shouldn't be that big of a deal in the sense that he still is at the top of the division. He still is higher than a lot of tough guys. And realistically, besides Holloway, Brian Ortega, and Yair and Volk, no one else is above him. And I think that right now he's got a lot of options to get right back in the mix of things. And I think it always helps in knowing that the champion in Alex Volkanovski is pretty much a fight or two away from dip-setting the division anyways, And if you don't get my style and you don't get my flavor, dip-setting means he's leaving. You feel me? So, it's one of those things where you don't really get maybe an immediate answer, but that's the beautiful part about the UFC and MMA is that when you let things play out throughout the season, things usually unfold and the right things play out. And sometimes they don't, and that's just part of the game. He did fight a great fight, and he was having success in the fight. And I disagree with Dana White's critiques about being upset about how he was performing in the fight. I disagree. I thought that Arnold went for broke. There was a reason why he got dropped. And the reason why he got dropped is because he was going for it. And like I said on the podcast that you'll tune into either tomorrow or Tuesday, depending on when my thumbnail person gets their act together. If anyone knows Photoshop, they want to show your boy AC how to roll on the Photoshop, get in the DMs. I got to get clean with the Photoshop. But one thing is like Arnold Allen got dropped. So clearly he was going for broke. And Max Holloway is so good in that danger zone, close range. He fights in a range that very few guys and girls are willing to fight in. And Max fights right there. And it's also to his detriment because he takes a lot of damage there. And the only person who was able to really conquer that was Alex Volkanovski, obviously the great Conor McGregor back in the day, with wrestling as well in a blown out ACL, but it is what it is. But, you look at Max Holloway and it's one of those things where, when you're fighting him in his range and you're fighting against a guy like Arnold Allen, who's so explosive and tends to close the distance maybe a little bit too hard and a little bit too close, what starts to happen is that you could overstep your boundaries and then you could eat some shots from a guy like Max Holloway. So I thought he was fighting a great fight. That was super exciting. And, I thought the prelims were great too. And I thought that the undercard was awesome. Also, it was always nice to see Canadian heavyweight Tanner Bosner move down a weight class. It's always nice to see a heavyweight move down to light heavyweight. We saw it in Jared Cannonier. Guy was absolutely ripped. So that was awesome. We got two folks in here. I don't know if it's still Kate and Tyler, but if you guys have any questions, help keep the flow of things. Another thing too is it's pretty jokes is that they actually released Prime in Canada, which is friggin' funny because I'm pretty sure that people are getting like extorted in the UK, but sad, part of the game. But another thing too is like what was up with the crowd booing Pedro Munoz versus Chris Gutierrez? I mean, come on, man. These guys were pressing the pace the entire time. And this reminds me of like the flack that the flyweight division used to get in the UFC. Is like they used to get this type of flack in the flyweight division because they were smaller guys who didn't have knockout power. Yeah, they were fast, but they weren't necessarily the most exciting because it didn't seem like there was a lot of risk. I felt like a fight like this got treated like that. I really think it did. And I didn't think the crowd and the fans were too appreciative towards the fighters. And I thought that was a little bit weak sauce, but it's part of the game. It is what it is. And how about Bill Algeo? Guy ends up coming back, winning with a beautiful elbow, and then he starts talking shit to Brown. And then after that, gets on the mic and then cuts like a Colby Covington-esque promotion, calling Kansas City a dump and that the people are all slobs. That was pretty funny in itself. So, cool moments there. I'm not really a big fan of the booing, but it is what it is. And it's interesting there. And then I watched a little bit of the Creator Clash as well, mainly because I wanted to see Harley Morenstein fight. If you guys don't want me to talk about that, I won't. I'll just stick with the MMA stuff. But that's also what I was watching last night, which was fun. And let's see here. No, I mean, his chin held up. He didn't get knocked out. The reality is he got caught in a very tough situation. The aggressiveness and the intensity of Kutalabe is usually always there, and that's a bad position to be in against him. And that's where I think that Tanner got a little bit too comfortable in taking the shots. He didn't show urgency. He was taking shots on the way up. And when they would have gotten fully up, they would have separated, and Kutalabe would have already had all of those free shots in that would have accumulated to then just go ahead and tee off. I thought it was the right decision because I just didn't see the future being bright for Tanner after that. I think it was just a good shot. I don't think, the weight cut had anything to do with it. I just think, what I thought had to do with it was the speed. I thought that he was not expecting Kutalabe to be that fast, and he most certainly was. And I think that was a bigger factor. He got caught in a tough position with a lack of urgency, which is kind of shocking because as a heavyweight, you should know that if you get stuck in that position, you're going to get murked. So, the fact that he was a little bit reluctant to do that was a little bit weird, but it is what it is. I thought the speed was more of a factor. Does Barboza ever break into the top 10, or is he at some place? Honestly, bro, forget about the top 10. Let's go out there, have some fun, get into some favorable matchups with either guys that you came up with on the on the circuit with in the UFC. I'm sure we could look up a few guys that Barboza did come up with, even though he's probably a step up from all of those guys. But like, if I'm Barboza, I'm looking to make the most money with the most favorable matchups in the most winnable situations and just go out there and create memories, keep my health, but keep my paycheck. The most important thing is they always talk about wanting the biggest fights because it's the biggest payday. But let me tell you something. If you win, your payday is even bigger. So, instead of banking on yourself and settling for just one salary against a tougher opponent and most likely you're going to lose, might as well and go and fight a matchup, towards the end of your career that you're going to win and put out some highlights and get it done. But at the end of the day, I'm saying that he just beat Billy Q, who a guy was like a 3 or 4 to 1 favorite. So at the end of the day, it's like he could still technically move up, but Billy Q had a tendency that Barboza had figured out a very, very long time ago. So, I think that he should just go and explore the fun fights. I think that more fighters should embrace that. Just being like, honestly, I'm not here for the title run. I'm just here to whoop ass and get paid and get laid and get out of here, Change plan. Yo, what up, man? I've seen you in the comments a few times. I'm not sure if you follow me on Instagram as well, but big ups, much respect. Rodriguez took a step back versus Munoz, and Munoz took a step forward. Yeah, well, that's Munoz's style, and that's what kind of made him so dangerous in the Sugar Sean fight, that we thought that he was going to come forward and really press the action on Sugar. But that's why Sugar thought it was a favorable matchup, because he's really great at counterboxing. But yeah, I know you meant Gutierrez. Rodriguez was the week before against Rosas Jr. But I believe that Munoz is the better fighter. I mean, Gutierrez just beat Frankie Edgar, who is at the end of his career and had no business fighting Chris Gutierrez anyways. And because he has now the name on his resume in terms of Frankie Edgar, people think that Chris Gutierrez is ready to go. It's not the case. Pedro Munoz is further ahead than him in the game, and it showed on the night. No, he didn't get the finish, but he was there. And he sucked up every amount of space that Gutierrez gave up. And, you know, gotta love Pedro Munoz. And Change Plan, like I said, thanks for tuning in. I've seen you comment a few times. I don't actually know who you are, but I guess I got to get used to that. So it's part of the game, baby. But yeah, Munoz was great, and I really appreciate him. And I appreciate a good comeback after having a little bit of an inconclusive bout against Sugar, where like people just completely wrote off Pedro and didn't care about him, and they only cared about what happened to Sugar, and he got the Peter matchup. So it is what it is, but that was pretty cool in itself. I got a couple of crutch words that I'm sure if you were to replay and you were to have a drink with you and you were to take a sip every time I said it, you guys would get pretty crunk, but it's part of the game. Another thing too is Shane Burgos lost his debut against Olivier Aubin-Mercier. Aubin-Mercier put that Canadian backpack on him, you know, put a little French fry, a little gravy, a little bit of cheese on the back of Shane Burgos and just, you know, went to town. And that's what it was. I mean, it was a little bit too bad there because Shane Burgos had such a big, you know, a big debut ahead of him with PFL. But I think they gave him the wrong matchup. But I know Hurricane Shane, he's like one of the best. He's very good. It was one of the few fighters that the UFC let go that Dana White openly said that they messed up on. But at the same time, you've got to look at it also and think like, you're entering a new promotion. You want to be the face of the promotion. Like, let's get some ass kickings there. They gave him Aubin-Mercier. I kind of thought that they were setting him up for failure there. Thought it was, and it's not a favorable matchup. Aubin-Mercier has great jiu-jitsu. He's a world champion or like a very high black belt in judo. I don't know how high the ranking goes, but he's pretty high up there, or one of the best. And judokas are not popular in Montreal, Quebec as a period. So he represents probably even the national team as well in Canada. And, you know, he's just very good on the ground altogether. And Burgos is a scrapper who wants to stay on the feet. You know, there's a reason why him and Charles Jourdain was a beautiful violence fight, because the two of them like to stand and bang. Even though Charles Jourdain, you know, trains at BTT in Montreal, shout out to BTT. You know, Charles Jourdain still loves to scrap and ready to go. So, you know, it is what it is. But it's that was just tough to see that they let him down like that in terms of giving him such a tough matchup right away. But ultimately, I kind of found like the buzz of PFL for me is wearing off a bit. I thought that they ended the last season so well, but I kind of find the beginning of the season, it's like the NFL, you know, it's like I kind of find like their first few events, they treat it like the preseason in an NFL game. Like you don't get like the real vibes, the real energy, whatever the case may be. Obviously, they turn the heat up as the seasons go. But yeah, I'm happy that I stuck with my guns on leaving Bellator as the number 2 MMA promotion. But you know, once in a while, when I turn on One Championship in the morning and they have that pitch black stadium, but all of the lights are chiming in on the octagon or the ring, man, is that a beautiful sight. Bit of a honey dick because you're thinking like, okay, maybe there's not mad people there and that's why you're turning off the lights, like not that sick of a situation. But there's also another possibility that, you know, it's just another ode and another feather in the cap that occurs in Asian MMA, specifically in Japanese MMA, where all of the focus is on the fight itself. It's not about the crowd cheering, twist his dick and going crazy and doing all of these things, but it's more so about giving respect. And Japan is one of the few places where in jiu-jitsu, when a fighter advances position, that the audience actually applaud them. So not only are they respectful, but they're also a very well-educated audience. So I think that one championship takes from that by doing that. Plug for watches. Yo, my boy, if you guys want to floss out, get you or your girl a watch, go hit my boy up. Plug for watches on Instagram. And no cap, guys, grinding and hustling. Started his business out in Miami a couple of months ago. One of the few guys that I know as of lately that set his mind to something and then went over it. So I just lost 3 viewers plugging you. So that sucks, but it is what it is. That's jokes. But yeah, man, I mean, it's one of those things too, where I think that PFL needs to do a better job in terms of like having maybe a little bit more fun in their events. But I think it's also one of those things where like they have to put their budget only to so many things. So they can't necessarily put all of their eggs in one basket. So it's interesting and we'll see what happens. Oh, we got 4 peeps back in. Yo, that's what's up. So I don't know. It's like, are we liking the PFL product? Let me know in the comments. Do you guys watch PFL? Do you enjoy PFL? Yo, Franco, my guy, what's Gucci, baby? If you weren't watching the UFC, what are you guys watching? Are you watching One Championship? Are you watching Bellator? Are you watching hockey? Or you're on Pornhub? Like, what are you doing? Because I think that a lot of people are very critical about Bellator and don't think that Bellator actually matters. And I disagree. I think it's important. I think they've got a great aesthetic to them. I actually like McCarthy. I actually like Mauro Ranallo. Josh Thompson's okay. He does what he does. And, I think it's a good product. And I like the gloves. I like everything about it. I like the roster. And I think that some of their champions right now, like Johnny Eblin is the toughest guy that Israel Adesanya could fight right now. You like that? I've been practicing. But I think that right now, that's the toughest matchup that Adesanya could have right now is Johnny Eblin from Bellator, and I've seen that. That's pretty jokes. It is possible, but those days are over. But I know exactly what you're talking about, like Data 5000, and no, the Kimbo Slice Ken Shamrock one was bad, but it is what it is. Shout out to my girl, was Gucci. But, I personally like the Bellator aesthetic. I like what they're all about. And most importantly, people have to put more respect on Bellator's name because just like the fighters who, maybe not, let's be honest here, most of them are trying to get into the UFC. Just like a lot of the younger media members and the younger journalists and the younger content creators want to eventually chase the dragon and start covering the UFC and interview MMA UFC fighters and work closely with the UFC, they're not accessible. It's not as easy to get credentialed and all of those things. But Bellator, for example, will let you be credentialed by them, or PFL will let you be credentialed by them over Zoom. So you can ask them questions. And I could ask them questions. I'm already registered. Let me know. Let me know in the comments. You want me to start, jumping in on a couple of Q&As or a couple of press conferences or media days for Bellator? Pick maybe a few fighters on the card that I'm familiar with and know to ask the best questions to. It's not about quantity. It's about quality. And, personally for me, I like the Bellator aesthetic. I think it's cool. I've always been a fan. But like I said, like they're giving the smaller guys an opportunity to cover them because they know for a fact that like the big fish only really care about the UFC. Little mic check. How am I sounding on here? I'm sounding fresh. It's good. 100%, Kate. And one of the reasons why you've been covering more Bellator is because they gave you the accessibility to. And that's why you appreciate them more. You know what I mean? And that's what I think is such a great strategy about Bellator. And that's why I've always appreciated them too, is because they treat the lower media, properly. No, lower media, the guys that aren't credentialed by the UFC, you know what I'm saying? That's what it is. So I personally fuck with Bellator, excuse my French. And I kind of find that as of lately, like PFL, they kind of need to step up their game in terms of like fighter entrances, the whole thing, whatever. Just doesn't do it for me, but I like their format more. I might even like in some ways their roster more. I definitely know that towards the PFL season in the playoffs, like honestly, dude, they're treating it like hockey or the NFL or the NBA. Where like towards the end of their season in the PFL is even where their promotion picks up. And I think that that's exciting as a whole. Do we think that Francis Ngannou signs to PFL? Let me know in the comments. I personally think he does. I don't think that he goes anywhere else, but I think it's a big mistake and he needs to be careful, because if Francis Ngannou takes too much time, and then let's just say decides to do a boxing match before an MMA match, he might face a little bit of a McGregor issue where he'll make his money in boxing. He'll lose in boxing, mind you. He'll make his money though, and then he'll go back to PFL. And whether he fights a top contender or a lower end contender, one thing that I've seen in the PFL is that a lot of these fighters that have been repeat fighters on past seasons, when they have came and fought each other again, the matches don't really happen the exact same way. There's a lot of win-losses with guys that are moving on, So I think that that makes for some difficulties as well, because if Ngannou goes and loses to a fighter in PFL that is ranked highly in PFL, but like globally and in the eyes of all of us, it's not that high, that's going to kill him. And if Francis Ngannou is going to boxing, I mean, what are the fighters that he wants to fight? It's probably Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, and Deontay Wilder. Personally, for me, I think that if I were him, he should probably go after Wilder or Joshua. I think that the two of them would make the most sense. I think, frankly, Joshua right now would make the most sense, especially him, who probably wants to make as much cream as he can and get out of there on top. I think it's a big fight there. And, Joshua's Nigerian. They could also try to spin it in a way where they could do the fight in Africa. It could be interesting as well. So that would be cool. PFL will probably... Yeah, well, exactly. The Super Fight League will make things exciting, and I think that that's what they're banking on as well, and that might be a possibility why they might be shaving a few points on some of the other events. Maybe I'm being too critical, but I don't know. It's just like they put PFL and Bellator on in the same weekend, and to me, it was unanimous. I enjoyed Bellator just so much more, but I think that they're probably, waiting towards the end of the season for those big season promotion, the season enders, plus the Super Fight League. So that could be cool. Got my man Sean here. Sean Mundy, what's Gucci? Never heard of you. So what's up? Thanks for tuning in. I agree. I enjoy them all, even bare knuckle. Dude, I love bare knuckle. I mean, I was just saying today how I love how bare knuckle fight championship has overtime rounds. I think overtime rounds are great. And honestly, these days in the UFC, I wish that the main event sometimes had overtime rounds. That would be really sick. And I mean, come on, Chad Mendes versus Eddie Alvarez, and then Luke Rockhold versus Mike Perry. It's like fantastic. That's great. This whole notion that Ngannou was going to go to BKFC, that shit was never going to happen. It was never going to fly. I just don't even, I didn't see that at all. Yeah, BKFC will give credentials too, for sure, as well, if you go to Florida. But yeah, I like BKFC. I mean, come on, Eddie Alvarez versus Chad Mendes. That's a really great fight. Personally, for me, call me crazy, but I got Chad Mendes, man. I'm rocking with Chad Mendes and Mike Perry. And I don't usually like to pick, but it's BKFC. And, Luke Rockhold is one of the few guys where I'm kind of like, what's going on with that guy, bro? So that's what it is there. Yeah, I'm like I said, to sum that all up, I'm comfortable with calling Bellator the number 2, and then the number 3. It's like, I don't know, it would be very nearsighted of me to say it's automatically PFL because I live in North America, because it is very possible that it's one championship. But I think a big problem and blemish with one championship is the fact that they are known for, I think, being in a lot of debt. So that kind of makes things like a bit sketch. I completely agree with you, Kate, and this just feeds into my point where, they're giving opportunities to guys like you to feel like you're at home and to feel like there's a future for you here and to feel motivated to pump out more content. And because they're treating you like family and because they appreciate you and because they take their time to get to know you, you cover their event, you cover their fighters, and you cover their promotion. And that's exactly what they want, and that's exactly what you want, baby. So keep that going, man. Just keep that going. It's an easy game, bro. When you have the promotion that wants you there with open arms, it's fantastic. And if you're young, take the opportunity and keep going to those events. Personally, for me, this is what I want to do. I want to sit here and talk to you for as long as I can on live streams, on podcasts, on Instagram lives, on radio, on Twitter Spaces, audio, video, anything. That's what I want to do. I don't necessarily want to be a journalist and go to all the fights and interview, etc. I have no problem doing fighter interviews, but me, I'd rather be more of a remote guy, Helwani style, where you shoot 2-3 times a week for 4 hours at a time, chop everything up to clips. Howdy do. But to you guys, Cade, Dylan Rush, Dylan Napoli, Napoleon, couple of the other fellas that I know, you guys, sky's the limit, baby. So just keep riding it. Just keep riding it, no doubt. So that's pretty cool to me. And what else do we got here? I mean, we're grooving now. We're at the 30-minute mark. Holy moly. Could you believe that I've been able to keep you entertained for 30 minutes? I got a lot of likes here, but I don't see a lot of views, baby. You got to get in here, man. Don't be hating. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's very, very interesting stuff. So I think I'm going to cut it at that 30-minute mark. It's the Adam Caplan MMA show. It's a second live stream. Good energy, good fun, good Q&A. Thanks to everybody in the comments. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. The Adam Caplan MMA show. We're out, baby.